The date is December 2nd, 2123. The world is under the control of the United States, but it wasn't always like this. Exactly 300 years ago, a message was given to Congress which changed the fate of the world forever. Matrano and I were determined to find out where everything went wrong in history, when everything went wrong for us. All right. Before everything went wrong, we infiltrated the top secret bunker where all of American history is held. We were able to get some footage of what we believe to be important events.
Would you like one?
No, I'm good. But, James, I have a plan.
What is it, John?
We as the United States must show our power in the world and stand up to those who are a threat to our nation and our neighbors.
I agree, but how are we going to do such a thing with Britain's strong navy?
We have to state what we want and stand our ground behind it. What I was thinking was that we start by saying the Western Hemisphere is no longer open for colonization, that we will regard any interference in that Western Hemispheric affairs as a threat to our nation's security, and we will refrain from participating in European wars and will not disturb existing colonies in the Western Hemisphere.
That's a great plan. I'll talk to Congress about it tomorrow during my annual address.
Sounds good. We believe something called the Monroe Doctrine is where it started. The next piece of footage we found was something about a dispute between what seemed to be a British man and an American man named John.
Alright, come on, John. We really need help to stop Spain from gaining all its colonies.
Why should we help you?
Please, we really need your help with this.
Why should the U.S. appear as a cockboat trailing in the wake of a British man of war?
Do you really want Spain to become a world power?
We don't care about your imports and exports. Now this is where it got interesting. In the last footage showed America not helping Great Britain. The question was, would this behavior continue through history or would it fade away? So we kept looking and we found this. Barbara, get me John Hay.
You want to talk to me?
John, we will and must extend our power.
How do you figure we do that, Teddy?
I'm going to extend the Monroe Doctrine.
That's a great idea.
We're going to send some threats to European nations so that they aren't allowed to collect any debts owed to them by Latin American countries.
So how are we going to do that, Teddy? I mean, Latin America doesn't even have organized governments.
They will learn, John, but soon we shall use the extension of the Monroe Doctrine to justify all our actions in the Western Hemisphere. We will make countries tremble in fear. We will be the leading country in the world, and it will be called the Roosevelt Corollary. America wasn't just showing their strength. They were using the Monroe Doctrine and extensions of it to threaten to take over weaker countries. In my eyes, and probably all the weaker countries' eyes, the United States seemed to take imperialistic actions without actually admitting to it. Now I understand why the United States came to the power of the world. But wait, before I leave, I was able to take some extra files from the bunker before everything went wrong and analyze them. I found multiple files that explain more about the Monroe Doctrine and events that were connected to it. One of them that caught my eye occurred in the 1890s, where a boundary dispute between Venezuela and Great Britain occurred. Here it says the doctrine was extended to include the right to decide how a boundary dispute should be settled. Now here's something I didn't catch before. It's a quote by a man named Richard Olney, and it says here he was the Secretary of the State at the time. He said, and quote, "Today the United States is practically sovereign on this continent, and its fiat is law upon the subjects to which it confines its interposition. Its infinite resources combined with its isolated position render it master of the situation and practically invulnerable as against any or all other powers." Here's another thing that seems pretty interesting. It says here that Panama and George Bush are connected to Monroe Doctrine as well. It also says here that the doctrine now covered by implication almost anything that Washington felt should be removed from the Western Hemisphere, or at least from Central America. Oh shit, not again. Before I leave, I want you to know this. While searching through the files, I found that the United States used the Monroe Doctrine to their own advantage. They used it for trade, which boosted their economy, and many Central American nations did not like it. But in the U.S., Americans came to the sense of nationalism because of false sense of confidence and power. Its main goal was to get away from political association with the European nations. Shit, run!
Run, Doug, go!
Some events were not shown or talked about during the video previously, so I'll talk about them now. But honestly, I just need 3 more minutes for my video, so here goes. One bizarre event that occurred was in 1861. Secretary of State William H. Seward attempted to use the Monroe Doctrine in hopes of avoiding the Civil War. He insisted that the U.S. should challenge supposed European interventions in the Western Hemisphere in order to divert attention from the impending crisis. Boy, was he a maniac. Another time the Monroe Doctrine was brought up was when Reagan referred to it during his first term. He was determined to affect the outcome of guerrilla wars and revolutions in El Salvador and Nicaragua. Oh wait, almost forgot the most important part, the doctrine itself. James Monroe asserted the idea of the Monroe Doctrine to Congress on December 2nd, 1823. It basically said the U.S. would protect Western Hemispheric nations from European nations. Politicians and such would always carefully tiptoe around the interventionist legacy of the doctrine itself, until the administration of Ronald Reagan. The immediate impact of the doctrine was mixed. It was successful to the extent that the continental powers did not attempt to revive the Spanish Empire. It was more due to the strength of the British Navy than the American military themselves. By the 1850s, the principle came to represent not just partisan, but national dogma. Gradually, the Monroe Doctrine was used for purposes that Monroe himself would not have foreseen. The doctrine had begun in 1823 as a prohibition to European colonization in practice. Never used or needed, became, in the 20th century, a fully generalized rationalization for American unilliberalism.